Welcome to Spotlight on Macro, Women of Color Leaders in the Industry. Hi, I'm Jane Yu, the director of the 4th Annual TIDE Film Festival. We're so excited to be able to gather in person again this year in Brooklyn, but as the world continues to open back up, we're also very grateful to have opportunities for virtual conversations like the one you're about to listen in on. We at TIDE believe that filmmakers of color deserve to tell their truths with intent, to disrupt the mainstream narrative, and to feel entitled in their right to do so. Macro is a multi-platform media company that represents the voice and perspectives of Black people and persons of color. Since its founding in 2015, the company has made 16 feature films and 2 TV shows, and garnered 15 Oscar nominations and 3 wins. Today, we'll be sharing a conversation with Macro executives Poppy Hanks and Greta Talia Fuentes, moderated by TV host Ellie Lee.
So excited to introduce our panelists, 2 amazing executives from Macro, Poppy Hanks, the EVP of Film Production and Development, Greta Fuentes, the VP of Film Production and Development. And as we begin any good old talk, we need to hear a little bit about the background, all right? How did you get started? When did you get started? How did you get into the industry? Just give us all the deets, Poppy.
All the deets, okay.
All the deets.
All of them. Okay. I was born a small child. I did not know that the film business was a business. So there wasn't any indication that this was a job, this was a career. I watched movies voraciously as a kid, but didn't know it was something you could do. Even growing up in Venice Beach, they would shoot films and TV shows all the time. And we were like, yeah, look at that next to the chainsaw juggler. And like, that's amazing. And keep it moving. So no clue.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I was always a writer. And so I went to USC undeclared. And my second year in, a friend of mine came to me and asked my help for this production that was being put on by the Department of Black Students. And I was like, I don't know anything about this script writing business. And he's like, you're a writer, just help me. I was like, okay. So I decided to help him out. And it was amazing. We put on this full production. It was a great show. And concurrently, he was applying to the film school and got in. And so I kind of got the bug at that point and was like, if he could do it, I could totally do it. And I did. So that kind of worked out because I had no backup plan. So I'm glad that worked out. So I got into the writing program, and what I didn't understand in my naivety was that it was a 4-year program, and I thought it was a 2-year program. And so I went in, I made my case. I've already been here. And the lady was like, yeah, that's really cute. It's a 4-year program and you're taking it for 4 more years. So I buckled in, very sad, but I did it. And through the course of that, on my last 2 years, because I had already taken on my prerequisite classes, I was only taking film classes, so that enabled me to get a job. And through a little bit of nepotism, my boyfriend's mom, she got me a job in physical production at 20th Century Fox under John Landau. And I worked there for the next, basically 2 years. Did my first PA gig and, was in the physical production department. And when he left to go produce that small film Titanic, my job was less secure. I was laid off. And then I got a call about 2 months later. Hey, there's these 2 guys in from out of town. They don't know anybody. They need an assistant. Do you want the job? And I was like, yeah. So no interview, no nothing. I just showed up, and it was supposed to be for 4 months, and it was for 12 years, ended up being. So got multiple promotions and so forth, made a couple movies there, and then continued on to work for Tyler Perry at 34th Street Films. And then my good friend who I met when I was an assistant, Charles King, then reached out when he was deciding to put together Macro.
Wow. What about you, Greta?
There's also a Charles King Connect, but a little bit later down the line. But I grew up, watching all kinds of movies and TV shows, and I feel like for the Latino community, like the beauty pageants and telenovelas and those things were really big. And so, and, you know, watching the red carpet for the Oscars and always dreaming as a kid, like, oh, that'd be amazing to be a part of that or, you know, do that. And so I think I always had an idea that I really wanted to work in the entertainment industry, just didn't quite know what. And so in high school, I kind of had my first little bit of like just background information on it with a friend who I had whose parents worked in the industry, and kind of got a little like taste of what like an acting class was like and like a commercial audition. And I very quickly learned like I don't think I can be an actress. One, it's a lot of work, and two, I was like still in high school and just wanted to be a teenager. But I think that was like the first door that kind of made it feel like more possible than not. And so I went to UCLA, which was my dream school. I transferred there, picked a major that was not in the film school. It was a major called World Arts and Cultures, which is very unique to UCLA in their School of Arts and Architecture, where it's like this beautiful, make it what you want, kind of like very free form major where there's people that are like spoken word artists or dancers or doc filmmakers or people who are museum curators. Like it's a very free form space. And so I figured, you know, I should go to school for something that I really love, to just learn about culture and people, and got my foot in the door through an elective class in the film school. And I think it was like the basics of producing or something. And the professor there, Alex Franklin, was amazing. And he was somebody who worked in the industry, still does. And it was just like the best class ever. I was like, wow, this is such a cool mix of being creative and still being able to have very hands-on experience with a project of making a movie and being there from the beginning to the end. And I was like, I think this is what I want to do, like as a grown-up now, figuring out like what the different options are. And so that's how I got my first internship. I interned at Temple Hill for like 6 months, and that was really cool. I'd never interned in the industry before. And again, I was like, this is great, reading scripts, doing coverage, figuring out what movies to make, hearing the producers talk about their thoughts and watching dailies. And it just felt like a really great experience. So I, you know, was really close to the assistants there who were amazing and kind of gave me advice to start at an agency and treat it like a grad school. And that's kind of where you make, you know, your connects. And so I was lucky enough to, you know, be connected to HR through them, who at WME, and interviewed there. And I got a job 2 weeks before I graduated, which was amazing, let alone at an agency at WME of all. And then I started 4 days after I graduated college. And that was it. And I was at WME, that was back in 2014, and was there for maybe like 7.5 months, just doing the closest thing possible to like producing. So I was trying really hard to get into like global, which turned into Endeavor. Now it's global now again. The indie sales packaging part, or their motion picture lit, where they obviously represent writers and directors, because I figured those were the strongest things I could get close to like learn about producing. And that didn't happen because I floated around for a long time, which was great. I got a lot of different experience. And then eventually Q Charles King, his desk opened up, and I didn't know him at all. I'd never interfaced with him at the agency before. And his assistant, Houston Costa, who's an agent at UTA now, had come out to the mailroom and was like, you're going to interview for Charles. So I went through the super lengthy process interviewing with him. And I figured it was just because I was a floater. That's what they call us in the mailroom. And was lucky enough to get the desk and trained for like a week. And then the first day of the new year of 2015, that was my first day on the desk by myself. And that was the day that Charles announced he was leaving to start Macro. And so I never knew, he never told me.
That's why I'm laughing.
I found out with everyone else that morning within like the first 30 minutes, because I got the same blast, like called, you know, the trades blasts that everyone else got. And so I was like, oh, okay, I guess he's leaving. And Houston was still at the agency, and he messaged me and he was like, don't worry about it, you'll be fine, I promise. So I kind of just had to wait until, you know, Charles was done in the big Monday staff at WME telling Ari and Patrick and all of his colleagues that he was leaving to start Macro. So eventually he came in and he was super apologetic as to why he couldn't tell me before, but that he'd love for me to come and that the opportunity was there. But he also understood that, you know, I was still new and I might want to stay. And so made me think about, he made me not answer immediately. He was like, think about it. And then the first thing the next day, I was like, of course I'm coming, because I always wanted to be a producer, and he was starting a production company. And I just had a good feeling about him, honestly, not knowing him, that just from our conversations, interviewing about the kinds of things that we both were drawn to, it just felt like, you know, a good way to go. So thankfully that's how it happened.
I mean, it's also like you guys are very smart, like hardworking, and that's why, you know, you got into all of these positions. And so it's really phenomenal to hear that, because I feel like a lot of, you know, kids and students who want to get into this, there's no rule book, you know what I mean? There's no guidebook into any of this. So it's really about your hard work and like, are you likable? You know, like, do people want to be around you? So my next question for you guys, did you have any role models that like showed you this, or do you feel like you were just hungry on your own?
I mean, I think I would say I'm a little older than you guys.
You don't look it, Poppy.
But I am. So there weren't a lot of Black women who were producing. I mean, you know, Deborah Martin Chase was like the closest, you know, kind of Northern star. And she, you know, we interfaced with her a lot, and she treated me with a lot of respect and courtesy, and was really awesome. But outside of that, it was really us, like me and my peers, rallying each other. When I was in school, I went to school with John Singleton. And John, when I was getting into the film school, when I was being accepted, he was about to do, or had just done, Boys in the Hood, and he got a deal. And I was like, yeah, that's what's up. I'm totally doing that, because I spoke the other thing into existence. So for sure, this is how this exactly works. Didn't work. But we were empowered because one of our own did it. And so then if he could do it, we could do it, you could do it. We worked on each other's stuff. We lifted each other up, you know. And so I would say like it was more peers as opposed to someone looking ahead, because I think everyone else, I mean, yeah, it was like Spike Lee, it was Matty Rich, it was all of those filmmakers. And at the time they were doing independent work, but they looked like us. So we're like, finally, we could do that. And I would say now it is that peer group. Like if anyone needs anything or has a question or whatever, like we're all rooting for each other and trying to help each other out.
Oh, I love that. I love that. What about you, Greta?
I think for myself, it started at home with just my parents and seeing my mom's work ethic, and just, you know, as a child of an immigrant and the American dream, and kind of seeing it happen here. I think that's like been a really big role model for myself in terms of just like how hungry I've been, and how quickly I figured out what I wanted to do and how I went about it. And just, you know, I think sometimes it's like with no fear just because you didn't know better. So it helped me in my own case. But I think apart from that, and just in general, of like just admiring different creatives or projects, like I think, you know, there's obviously like the three Mexican greats, like, you know, Del Toro, Cuarón, and Iñárritu, who are like incredible, and I love all their films. It was watching things like the Frida Kahlo movie and knowing that Salma Hayek fought so hard to make that movie. I think I draw from a lot of different places like that.
Amazing. But in terms of inspiration nowadays, like who inspires you? Like what inspires you to keep going and keep wanting to be in this field?
I mean, I think it's hard. I'm like, let's start with, it's hard. It's not easy. I do think that like what we're doing makes a difference. And even in just like, it's hard to get projects of color made in general, regardless of like Asian, Black, Latino. And seeing the result of what the effort we put forward is like, it makes it worth it, you know, and you keep pushing, and it's we're making what we want to see, we're making what we want to watch. And I think, you know, also opening doors for other people. Like we work with a lot of first-time filmmakers, and it started a few careers, and that's exciting. I'm making it sound like it's a power trip, and it's not. But I just, you know, we're creating this art and changing culture and conversation, and hopefully it'll continue to ripple up and make some significant changes. But yeah.
Listen, as an Asian girl, the first time I saw Lucy Liu, I was like, oh my God. Like, just
It's
did not.
huge.
Yeah, it's huge. It changes so much. And
Mhm.
it's something, it's an experience to see yourself on the screen,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
What about you, Greta?
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to Poppy, I think it's like it's so hard to make a movie. It really takes a village, and it could take anywhere from a couple years to a few more years to a lot more years. So you really have to be committed to what the vision is and the creative and just the message. And so I think it is really inspiring to see the impact that projects with people of color have, because we're really, impacting a lot of different people's lives and inspiring them to, I think, dream bigger and go after, maybe wanting to be an actor, or maybe wanting to be a director, a writer, a producer, and just knowing that it's possible. So I know that's like a Miss Universe kind of answer, but it's true.
We were waiting for the. This isn't an easy feat. What you guys are doing, everyone in this industry that is a person of color, like, there's a lot that we've been against and that we're still up against. Have there been experiences where you really doubted yourself or in the movement or what you're doing? And in those moments, how did you overcome those little bumps in the road?
I would say, I mean, it's hard when people don't share your vision.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in general in this business, we don't, as much as we are empowered to do things and select projects and champion them, at the end of the day, you're still beholden to the distributors and like kind of the higher ups, and that gets a little defeatist sometimes. You feel like you're rolling this ball up the hill and it's coming back down, and you're putting everything into it. And like, you can't convince them that this is of worth, or this is, this makes sense. And why can't everybody see it? Greta is the queen of like double down when she's passionate about something. And it's something I admire about her. She can be like a dog with a bone. Like, no, you're going to listen to me. This is important. No, and that's how you have to be, in terms of pushing stuff forward. And, it can be easy to doubt when you're the only one saying this is a thing. And you got to trust your gut. I mean, that's it.
Yep.
And I think in your conviction, it can help, change people's minds as well. At least the smart people who will be like, I don't see it, but I trust you. And so, I support you.
Kind of sure. Yeah. Greta?
I definitely, just going back to the first thing that Poppy said, putting together films that haven't been made yet or don't have a track record is really difficult. And I think, Hollywood's had its system in place for a very long time. And there's a specific, taste and shorthand and short list of people and projects that they want to do. And so I think, like anything, it takes time for things to change. And I think thankfully we're in a place now where Macro isn't the only company that exists that makes content like we do. There's a lot of more people kind of keeping an eye out for it, but it still needs to continue to progress into the studios and the people that, have the buying power and have the green light power. And so, yeah, it can get discouraging when you're trying to put together a small film and find, the right home for it. But all it takes is one person, so I think it's a lot more encouraging to think about the, potential outcome if you continue to really fight for something, and also just the impact it'll have to you and just the other doors it'll open.
Yeah. I think the other thing I'll say to that is like, there's no comp for a lot of the stuff that we're doing. And that makes it challenging because it's like, what are other films like that? And you're just like, no, this is it. This is the comp. We're going to be the comp, and I find that a lot of times we're the comp.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure Macro is so, precious to you in many ways. I'm sure it's like a piece of like your that there's a baby and you guys all have pieces of the baby, right? Can you talk about what this company really means to you and how it's different from other companies?
Other companies that we've worked for, or other companies that exist?
Or what other companies may be like what Macro is like.
I mean, you're talking to the OGs day one. Like I consulted with Charles 6 months before Macro launched. So the personal investment, the family investment is on a level that I never had prior to this. I mean, I think when I was at State Street Pictures, you know, I was a baby. I was there for 12 years. That was my identity. You know, and I was a part of the DNA of the company. Like I was there, part of the OG. That's my jam. I'm part of the OG group or whatever. Same with 34th Street Films. I was part of the original group. But I think for this, it felt very much like for us, by us, like a little FUBU, you know, and with the very clear intent and mission. I think I realized, this is going to sound like kind of naive, but I realized a couple months ago, I was on another panel, that I had only made projects of color through my 20-something career.
Wow.
Literally have never worked on any other kind of film.
Wow.
And that's kind of dope.
Hella dope.
But it's also like, it wasn't plotted, but it was, this is what I want to make and what I want to see. And so, and can also speak to, and I think for Macro to articulate it in a bigger and stronger way, it's like that thing I was always feeling. But then when Charles was like, this is what the company is about, I was like, yes, this is what we've been talking about all this time. And its mission keeps it crystal clear, keeps that North Star of what our intent is and what we're trying to accomplish. And I'm not saying other companies don't have that, but I do feel like there's a purity in it that makes me want to protect it and, you know, and see it succeed in a way. Like we're told so often our projects don't travel, they're not universal, you know, they're always given like the black tax of like less resources and less things. And like kind of want to also show people wrong, like the industry wrong, and there is success here. And we can, you know, persevere. I just want to continue making these things.
Yes, totally. Greta, especially because you were like, when the announcement happened, you're like, oh, well, okay, here we go.
I guess I'm working at Macro.
What's it been like for you since you've been there too, since the beginning?
Pretty amazing, yes. I mean, it's funny though to hear Poppy talk about her being a part of the DNA, because it's like the same. Like, am I like just a younger Poppy? I don't know what's going on right now, but no, it's been amazing to just see the company, to be a part of literally the beginning fabric of a company and just building it up and literally putting systems in place and you know, intimately knowing a lot of different facets of it and just being able to help Charles bring his vision to life has been incredibly rewarding and unique and something I've never experienced before. And I feel like it was the grad school of the business too. But apart from that, I think it's a super emotional and personal connection to it, when you're also putting your blood, sweat, and tears and share the vision that Charles has. And just when you hear him talk about, you know, how important it is, and obviously be ourselves being people of color, watching content on TV and knowing, like you were saying, seeing Lucy Liu or like seeing, you know, somebody from our own communities really makes an impact and helps you dream bigger. And like, and it changes the world, as like cheesy as it sounds, for people to just know that there's a possibility you can be something else or, you know, pursue that dream. So it's been really great. I love what we do. I think being able to just champion these stories and kind of change the landscape is a really personal thing, because we're having to make up for a lot of lost time. And so I think, yeah, all of the work that we do at Macro is really important.
I mean, you guys are the pioneers. You're really like moving it. You know, it's crazy. I mean, do you have moments where you're like, I'm doing something? Well, we're really doing something here. I'm sure you do.
Maybe. Honestly,
we're super in the thick of it.
Like head down.
Yeah.
I think it's the moments, it's those surprising moments. So like, for example, one of my favorite stories to tell is like, I was at Target and just minding my own business, obviously pre-COVID. And this woman is walking in front of me and she's like, girl, you got to see Mudbound. You got to stop everything right now and go see it. It will change your life. And I'm like, oh, and I'm following her around the store because clearly something I did impacted this woman, and she's telling someone else about it, you know, and it's just like that, that's why, that's the reason, you know, and you do have those moments where you're like, this is kind of cool. Okay, now what's next? What fire? What's going on?
It's so funny, the universe like just presenting that person in front of you to like let you know like you are doing the thing.
It was crazy. I'm sure she needed to look over her shoulder because I legit followed her for like,
she's like
5 minutes
following me.
I'm like,
I think too, there's also the big one where, you know, when it's like the Oscars or something and you see Judas, you know, nominated, or Fences or Mudbat. Like, I think obviously those are the ones that are the forced ones where you're like, oh, okay.
Totally.
I guess we did that. You don't think about it. It's so far from your mind whenever you're working on something, because really the intention is just to make, you know, the best story possible. So that's like the cherry on the top. And yeah, that's, again, that makes it to people watching the Oscars at home, watching the red carpet, and then like it makes all the difference. So I feel like those are probably some of the most impactful times that you see it.
Listen, I know that it was Korean made, but when Parasite won Best Film, I mean, my Koreanness, like, I was like, should I just wave a flag everywhere? Yeah. Like, it changes you in so many ways. It's crazy.
Well, it also like points to here's a foreign language film that is coming in and kicking everyone's ass.
Crazy.
In a time where it's like no one wants to read subtitles, and you know, this is not a thing, and like it was so well crafted, and it's so funny. Like I went to go see it. God bless my husband. I was like, listen, we got to go see this movie, and he's just like, what is this movie? I'm like, I don't know what it's about. We're just gonna go see it, and we go to see it. He tolerates me. And we go to see it, and he's so blown away. And watching him watch it was like gratifying to me.
Yes.
You know, just exposing him to that. And it is. I mean, it's such a special film. And it crossed all of the boundaries in a way that you get written off so many times for. And now we have another comp. You know, but of course, unfortunately, it's like, we need another Parasite. No, man. You know, you need just more stories.
Yes.
In this space.
Absolutely. Yeah. Greta, you know, you're such a fierce champion of Latinx voices. Can you tell us about why it's important to you? Do you hear an echo? Okay, go. Can you tell us why it's important to you, and also about some of the work you do outside of Macro around being such a champion of Latinx voices?
Yeah, I think just generally when I was starting out at the agency in the mailroom, unfortunately, there wasn't that many other, just in general, POC, but very specifically Latinos that were my peers. And so I think that was the first layer of just seeing how few of us there were. And so thankfully, I think like the first year or second year into Macro, I met one of my best friends in the industry, Jira Valaro, who's a former colleague of ours, who's also Latina and came up in her own crazy way. And then slowly but surely, we would meet one friend here, one friend there. And then we kind of just made a pact to create community. And that was going to be a really big part of just advancing the whole cause for all of us and really changing the landscape. So a couple friends, along with Jira and I, our friend Kave, Diego and Alvi, banded together to create this organization called the Latin Tracking Board that was really geared towards young Latino executives, because very specifically we need one of those to get us to the studio power, buying power, green light power level to really help change the landscape. And so it's good to have that community and just have people to turn to and ask, you know, what are you going through? How can I help? And just really kind of, you know, use each other to get to all of our collective goals and like really change, you know, the landscape of things. But it's also just great to have somebody from your own community to, you know, if maybe you're not from LA, to have, you know, just that friendship with. But even beyond that, just it's really special to be able to come together and share culture and just have that bond in an industry that sometimes can feel really hard to break into, and very much for a very specific kind of group of people. So
yeah, it sounds like the squad got together. Y'all found it.
the squad got fully together, and now our group is some insane amount of people.
Wow.
And everyone's kind of traveled through the ranks. So it's just really exciting to kind of see that, see that happen over time.
Yeah, it's amazing. Poppy, recently in a post Blue Bayou screening, which you and Greta both produced. Okay, I'm gonna clap it for you. Okay. In the Q&A, director Justin Chon, who's Korean American, was asked why it's important for him to showcase Black and Latinx stories in his film, in addition to the Asian stories that he's passionate about. And his answer was that in the beginning, it was always Black people that were supporting him and giving him opportunities. And of course, part of TIDE's Film Festival's mission is to help create a community of POCs from different backgrounds to support one another. Can you tell us why you think it's important for people of color to support one another? Like, it's a simple question, but like, people really need to hear the answer to that.
Because you should. That's it. We're all in this together. I mean, it's like, again, there's power in the numbers and in the force of it. And unfortunately, on one hand, we are lumped together in a way like if one thing goes bad, that's it for everybody else. And, we should all support each other. We should show up for each other. We should, Greta and I, we worked on Alan Yang's movie, Tiger Tail. I'm not Latina, but apparently now I'm Puerto Rican, Dominican, working on Blast Beat, producing that with Greta. And, there's a humanity in all these stories. And that's what I'm excited about bringing to the forefront, regardless of ethnicity. There's a humanity there, and these are stories worth telling. And I don't know if it's my DNA. I got a hippie mom. But I think it's important that we support each other and show up for each other. And if we have the power to tell these stories, let's tell these stories and get them out there.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any advice to filmmakers when they are pitching projects? Like, what would be your biggest advice for them?
When they're pitching projects,
Mm-hmm.
rehearse. Pitching is a craft.
Yes.
Writing is a craft.
Yes.
They're very independent of each other.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of writers, really good writers, can't pitch.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. Writing is a very insular craft. You're alone in your cave. Right. You're writing, unless you're a TV writer, that's separate.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you can practice and become relaxed and at ease, goes a long way. But definitely, I would say rehearse, because that can be, and be concise. Think of the three.
And think about who you're pitching to as well, and just, take the time to get educated before going in, and see the kinds of things that they respond to. And you're really selling yourself in a pitch, because you don't have a script for them to just read and believe, your talent and ability off of. So it really is a lot about showing up in that room and just going all out, but making it, as fun as possible for everyone, depending on what it is, and just making it, just telling a great story.
It's like Shark Tank, and you guys are the sharks.
I think in general, Greta's advice is actually just across the board, like any meetings you're having, any pitches, do your research, because I've definitely been in the, had it just a general, and they're like, so what do you do? What does your company do? And I'm like, for real? Because your people sent you in here and didn't tell you anything.
Wow. Yeah.
So it doesn't bode well.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean like you got to suck up, but
Yeah, totally.
Just be informed.
For sure. And then lastly, advice to anyone, particularly women of color, seeking to work in production and development. And then, in your opinion, what is the best path to take? Because I am seeing women who want to be in production, and all I've ever seen is men in production. So it's definitely changing. So yeah, what any advice for them?
Well, as we established at the top of the program, there is no one true path for everyone, right? So we start there. You know, a lot of it is opportunity. I think I've seen different ways to it. You know, I have a friend she's a line producer. She started off as a coordinator and worked her way up to supervisor. You know, that's one way to go about it. I've seen people going through accounting into physical production, in terms of, you know, being able to, because it's, you know, some of it is financial. There are creative producers, and in which case you just go and do that, and then you're a producer. I mean, it's trial and error, but, you know, there are people who started from nowhere. Yeah, I'm sure
I would say too, like, just stay plugged in with, I think, your own community. That's when groups like what we're trying to do with the Latin Tracking Board, or there's so many other groups too, and just getting tapped in, because everyone usually wants to help each other come up. So there's bound to be somebody who knows of a production or can give you advice, or, you know, can point you in a certain direction. So I would say just try and, you know, take advantage of the resources that are out there with different community groups.
Also, wouldn't you say like thick skin? Because I've never met a woman in this industry, in your field, where they're like, you know, like very quiet and like sensitive. No, y'all are bulls. Like, you guys ran through it. You know? So wouldn't you say like that's a big part of it?
I would say there's a finesse, and I think there's a confidence, and there's the diplomacy as well. Because back to your point of like, be nice. No one wants to, you know, work with jerks. I think there's, you know, people want to be in the presence of, but also someone who knows, you know, kind of what they're doing. The thick skin, for sure. Yeah. I think you can have a thick skin and still be thoughtful. You don't have to be a jerk.
Yes.
To get your point across. And I'm of the more flies with honey camp. But, you know, there are times when you got to put the foot down and like, we have to stop shooting now or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Greta, I know you got some words, because you know, you're young and you killing it out here.
I mean, just advice. Again, I sound like a broken record, but I feel like what Poppy was saying earlier, just about your peers.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough to have a lot of Latina lady friends that are at different studios now, at different production companies, people who are working all different kinds of levels. And I think it's great to just lean on each other, because someone's bound to have gone through something that you haven't yet, or vice versa. You're never going to stop learning. So I think it's also just Poppy and I are always like, we're so tired of learning. We're so done learning. But I think the advice is just to, stay open to learning. I think take advantage of your resources. You're always going to make it through, you know, whatever difficult thing it is. And by the end of it, I think you'll be that much better for it. So, you know.
And just to wrap up this great discussion, some projects y'all are excited about, you can tell us.
Honestly, there's so many, and we recently set up a bunch that we're really excited about. But I will talk about I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, with America Ferrera directing, Linda Yvette Chavez, who was the co-creator and showrunner on Hentified, did the adaptation of this New York best-selling book. And we have it set up at Netflix with a good friend who's the executive there, and we're just super excited about it. Can't wait to get going on that one.
Cool. Ladies, thank you so much for your work, everything that you do. It's so inspiring. Thank you for being here. And to everyone watching at home, we love you guys. Keep going for those dreams. Bye, everybody.
Do it.
Bye. Do it.